All right, Chris. Hey there. Hey. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I ended up being first. That was weird.
I put you in first, and this is round two. Ding, ding. We had a boo boo. Round two. Here we go with Family Spirit International. Tonight we have a very special guest. We have Christopher Soucy, who has a fantastic podcast out of Savannah, Georgia. It's called The Most Haunted City on Earth. Let's all welcome Chris Soucy. Go to add stage. Go. Well, there we did it. Yay. I'm
Hey!
hitting the button. I'm hitting the button and it's not going. We've got Chris. Just buckle up, guys. Just buckle up. I'm doing this by myself. Our friend Brandon Cooper that usually does this for me, his grandmother, bless her heart, she's in hospice care and he's by her side. So, we're just going to keep our sense of humor about the shenanigans I'm going to get us into. And we'll all be praying for Brandon and his grandma. Okay,
That's a
so we're
great
all
thing.
back.
That's a great thing about electronics. You learn about them real quick.
Yeah. So Christopher, this is Chris. Chris, this is Christopher.
Hello.
So
Hello.
just to talk a little bit about Chris, Susie. Chris has been in the paranormal for quite some time. Um, okay, everybody's sending me messages. I'm just letting everybody know that we are good to go. We are back. Everybody, thank you for messaging me. I'm getting all kinds of messages. Oh my goodness, we're getting all kinds of messages, aren't we?
Yep, I just told them I'm on a podcast. They
Yeah.
have the emergency room before I take your call.
Okay. Well, so Tracy, David, everything's fine. Blaine hit the button, and we're without Brandon. So all of this will be on Roku after we get our bridge fixed. So just stay tuned, and we'll have all of these episodes we've done the past several weeks in our Roku channel and on YouTube. So Chris Soucy is a paranormal enthusiast with experience spanning over 40 years. He's the co-host of the Most Haunted City on Earth podcast. He's also a seasoned theater professional with over 30 years of experience in the industry. He's the co-founder of Odd Lot Improv. Oh my God, I want to go there so bad. And the Savannah Shakes, get it? Savannah Shakes Theater Company, and has worked as an actor, a puppeteer. Oh my gosh, a writer, director, and filmmaker. In addition to his work in theater, Christopher is also an Army combat veteran. I didn't know that. And he currently resides in Savannah. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Glad
I
to be
didn't
here.
know you were military.
Yeah, oh, yes. Yeah. A short stint, but impactful.
Very. And you are a combat veteran. So uh, learning about, let's see, what was your MOS?
So I was 19 Bravo 31 Charlie. I had split.
Okay, Charlie Signal.
Signal, yes.
Okay. Well, cool. That's awesome. Were you in the Savannah area doing your?
I was not. My
Uh,
father was also in the military. And
okay.
so when I was in high school, we were stationed in Hinesville, Georgia, about 30 miles south of Savannah. And so when I got out of the Army, I didn't have a hometown because we had moved my whole life. And my sister had stayed in this area. So she kind of represented the only home I knew because my father was still in the Army. And
Right, right.
so, there's no place that I felt drawn to. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll just go there for, a year or two. That was 30 plus years ago. and,
Oh,
it's an easy place to live.
yeah, it is a beautiful place. Chris David says hello to
Hello.
everybody and welcoming you to the show. Hey, Michelle, thank you for watching. Tracy, you can come in and chat with us here. Last time we had quite a lot of people that were communicating with us, and it was our first run with our new format. So it was a really great show. And I'm so glad that you're our premiere. So that's great. You and I have some things in common, sir. I have a degree in theater from
Oh,
Lander University, and I performed at um, it was at the time it was Paramount Carowinds.
Oh,
Now it's
sure.
just
Right.
Carowinds, and so I did some things with that, and I did a few modeling things and a few things in theater and in film. But I've always been in the supernatural, and then one day I filmed a couple of different things. I've been in my ghost story caught on camera. That was the first thing. I sent some evidence off and we were selected. That was a lot of fun. And then we went on to do a couple other things. We did The Ghost Inside My Child, and we did Paranormal Witness. My husband didn't get to meet you. He's in annual training.
All right.
So whenever we get some time and he's back around, and we can all meet up, even if it's online, I'd like for him to meet you. I wanted him to explain to you his story. He lived in a house on the road to Savannah,
Oh.
and it was violently haunted,
Oh, yes. I don't doubt it at
horribly
all.
haunted. So, that he actually was featured in Paranormal Witness, and then I was asked to be the psychic medium in Repossessed.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was a lot of fun, traveling and filming. That was a lot of fun. So tell me a bit about your podcast. How long have you been doing your podcast?
So I guess we're going on 3 years. Is that right? It's 3 or 4 years. Gosh.
That's
We started,
awesome.
right at the beginning of the pandemic. There's a lot of shuffling around. I had to kind of close both of my theaters for that period, um,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we're just looking for new projects and new ways to get things out. And the podcast is a great idea for creating content and getting things together and organized. And really, me and my friend Madison Timmons, we are just kind of ghost fanatics, and a lot of time. And
Oh, yeah.
being in Savannah, you've just got so much to talk about in that field. And Madison is a medium, and so I claim no specific gifts or talents. I'm more of just a hyper vigilant person. So it's interesting to have like someone to talk to who has a more tangible sense of the spirit realm. When
I
I've
know
spent my
what you
whole
mean.
life kind of academically looking at the spirit world, I'm not again, not particularly gifted, but I've had a lot of experiences, and I don't think those experiences were tied to my specific gifts of any type.
Well, I want everyone to see a poster real quick.
Yeah.
The most haunted city on earth. That's fantastic. So that's wonderful. Now, do you cover specific areas in Savannah or
We
different?
actually covered the whole world. We
Okay.
don't limit ourselves to Savannah. It was kind of Savannah centric to begin with, but really the title, the most haunted city on earth, can be anywhere at this point. It's a conversation piece. It kind of gets people's attention.
Oh,
Savannah
yeah.
has definitely claimed that mantle as the most haunted city in America. One of the most haunted cities on earth. But it really is more about just opening up a conversation and making people go, "Oh yeah, why? Why would you say that? What makes you think that?" and we've been able to cover all kinds of things from all around the world. We've brought people from Asia into our podcast to talk about the ghosts and cryptids and stories that are told there, and we've had people from we covered like Norway and
Oh,
Norwegian lore,
yeah.
and Iceland and Iceland's lore. And so we just kind of follow where our interests go. It's like finding a new rabbit hole every week.
Oh, I'm sure. That's what we do. We also cover different topics. We've covered everything from cryptids to holistic medicines.
Oh
And,
yeah,
being
absolutely.
the title of Family Spirit International means at first it started out My Haunted Family, which is almost what I called it. But instead we went Family Spirit because of how far back our families go into the supernatural. But then it went into other families, and then about your ghost story. Tell me your ghost story is what we're covering now. And I found you, and you've been talking about other people's ghost stories. So I
Oh
thought,
yes.
hey, this is perfect for us all to see. I I went to a modeling convention in Savannah, God, years ago, and I was on a bicycle for two with another girl that was doing the modeling convention with me, and a man kept. We saw a man and he was, waving us down, and I said, "Paige, pull over." He was trying to reach us, and she said, "What?" And I said, "Pull over," because we could see him way off, and he was waving like crazy. And I pulled the bike over, and as soon as I did, there's like this big truck that went boom, and the guy's not there. And Paige said, "What made you pull over like that?" And I was like, "Well, I'm glad I did because we'd have got knocked off our bike."
Oh,
And,
absolutely.
and I think that's my only real haunted experience in Savannah. But I wasn't there for anything, so it was just really cool that
So that's
I
a
had
really
an
good
experience at
story.
all.
It,
But
it's funny because we take uh, letters from our listeners, and we call it ghost mail. Send us ghost mail,
ghost mail.
and and they will send in their personal accounts, and we've had many accounts that are just like the one you just spoke of. These kind of premonition entities that seem to warn of accidents or mayhem that's coming their way, and I just find that endlessly fascinating, the concept, because that really does kind of mess with your understanding of time. you
Yeah,
know
yeah.
if you're dealing with a spirit that is telling you about something that's about to happen or that's going to happen in the near future.
Yeah, he was waving,
Exactly.
like,
He obviously knows that the possibility is there.
yeah, something's
um
about to happen. You
right.
better pull over. And we did, and it saved our booties.
Wow.
Wow. It does mess with your sense of time and space because apparently he knew something we didn't. I think
Right.
that's a very great way of putting it. I was trying to see if I had a picture of you at the Fitzpatrick Hotel.
I don't
And I
know.
know that I do, but I
There
don't
must
see it
be.
right at the
Yeah.
minute.
I know we posed for a picture or two, I'm sure.
Yes, we have, and there's been a lot of videos. But when
Yeah.
you came into my room, 307,
Yes.
there was something really interesting happening. Emily, no, Mindy,
Yes,
Mindy,
Mindy.
asked me if I wanted to scry in the mirror because
Right. Yes, yes,
everybody
yes.
was saying there's something going on with this mirror. It looks like it would be a great thing to. My dog has the zoomies. If you hear some serious footsteps, she's running up and down the hall. Oh my goodness, girls, give it a break. If anybody that knows me knows about the dogs and they know that they're with me, my little bitty brown one, she can ghost hunt. She actually sees spirits and she's a great
Yeah.
conversation starter. But Luna, she's Looney Tunes, man. She's just Looney Tunes.
We always say, pay attention to your pets. Your pets know better than anything. They're always going to be like the first to realize something's going on. And so if your animal acts strange, pay attention. Yeah.
So what I was trying to say to you before my dog blew my mind, um, you came into the room and we were all just trying to investigate the place and we were taking turns. I think that it was very well organized. Patrick Welsh did a beautiful job. Um, the way that he split everybody up so that we're not talking over the top of each other. Everybody had a chance to investigate locations. Everybody had their own type of equipment. And, you could move any way you wanted to. It was great to have some type of organization.
Oh yeah,
And
I would definitely advise anyone to take uh, a chance on these specific pocket conventions, because they really do give you an opportunity to learn so much, learn from other people, and get some hands-on experience that might be different than what you're used to.
I agree. So I had started, Mindy said something about, would you like to scry in this mirror? Everybody's got a feeling about the mirror. And I thought, ooh, I haven't done anything with scrying. I mean, I'd seen it done. I've done it when I was a little kid. My grandmother had helped me learn how to do it. She was very, very hands on. teaching me things. Like she taught me about her methods of doing ghost hunting. And, she was 98 when she died 2 years ago. So that should tell you, her methodology is, you know,
Oh yeah,
a
before
good
all
bit
the
different.
technology, right?
Right. So it would have included things that we don't do now. So, but anyway, she was doing her best to teach me about scrying, and I spent some time with her. And so I remembered it. Mindy kind of walked me through it, and it really helped a lot. And so we started investigating, and in that mirror, and all of a sudden, I just said, if you want, because I could feel like they were right there. And I just said, if you want to touch me, you can't hurt me, but you can touch me. And I reached my hand out and I put my hand up against the mirror like this, like that. Well, the screen like this. And a hand came across like that. I could feel
Oh
the
wow!
fingers through my fingers. And I was like, oh my God, I feel it. And I could see his face forming across mine, and then I could
Wow!
see hers, and I could tell they were together. They really just didn't want to be messed with. I could tell there's a lot of people that, out of their fear of what may have created their situation in that room, I could tell they didn't have some great conversations with a lot of
Oh, I'm
tenants,
sure.
people that stayed. But the fact that we were going about things in the best ways, I feel like that's why we had such a good response. And Mindy actually posted a video of it in our group chat, and it just tickled me to death because I just felt like, wow, this was like once in a lifetime kind of feeling. So fast forward, they leave. You come in not knowing what we were talking about. You sit down and you're leaning up against the mirror in the dresser, and you said, "Oh, wow, something feels like it just touched me." You didn't
Yeah.
know that he had put his hand out.
No.
And we
No.
were all like, "Whoa, he felt that." And I just said, "We're not scrying now." And you kind of, you didn't know what we were, what I meant, and I'm not really sure you even heard me.
Right. I
But I
was
was just
doing the Estes method, so I couldn't hear anything.
right. And so I just thought that was so unique that we had that happen. Christopher, I'm going to post some pictures real quick.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Mr. Fisher,
Mm-hmm.
I want you to see the hotel. Hold on. I've got a video, not a video, but a picture of it at night. Oh, here we go. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Look at it.
Very majestic.
Isn't it gorgeous? And there's an ice cream parlor near it, and a little cafe, and a coffee shop. I mean, all the things that you want in a little quaint town. This is the inside as you go up from
Wow.
the. Yes. And now I want you to know that my dogs would not go up those stairs. My little dog, Ginger, was not having it. She was terrified. She pulled completely out of her collar in order to avoid those steps. Now Luna didn't care. She just went bounding up them, but she's not having it. She went to the other steps. Now this is looking down into the. Where is that, Christopher? Chris, where is that? I know I got it off their website, so it's the Washington Georgia hotel
Yeah.
we were at. But anyway, that's the inside,
Oh,
right as you walk in the door.
so that staircase that you're looking at goes down behind this to a door.
Oh, that's it. Okay. So Christopher Fisher, when you walk in the front door, this is what you see. After you go under the first chandelier, the second one to the right is the front desk. And there's a story that there were twins that were raised in the hotel, and one of them died of scarlet fever, and the other one died right there on those steps. She fell and broke her neck.
Wow.
Yeah, and the girls did turn up giggling and laughing, and you could hear their little footsteps and everything. So that's where that is, not far from right as you walk in.
Right.
But look at the lighting. This is what it looks like in the hotel. It doesn't matter what time of the day. It's got that I don't know, it's a bit eerie,
It is eerie. It's a very eerie that stretch wrapping around that corner. Very,
Kind
very
of like a dim, like lighting.
Yes, yes, but I loved it. I loved being there, and I loved the spirits that were there. Um,
Yeah, it was not it's not an oppressive place. It doesn't make you feel
mm-mm,
like bad at all. Nothing, you know, nothing that you would want to stay away from. It was very welcoming,
right.
very
It
warm.
doesn't seem heavy.
Yeah, not
That's
heavy at
right.
all.
Not heavy at all. And there's people that have weddings there. It's just a little bit of living history within that old hotel. But in 307, there's this legend that a mistress was tossed out the window, and right inside that room, it looks like a little Rapunzel type little. Um, it juts out. I don't know what
Yeah,
it's called, but it's like
it's like
three
a turret,
windows, like
the
a little turret.
round one.
Yes, and we have a little table there and a little love seat. We moved that out of the way because we did use the rollout, but apparently I was under the impression she was tossed out of there. But somebody else that had come to hear the vendors and the speakers, she had to leave, or she and her husband had to leave right after that. They couldn't stay and investigate with us. They're planning a paranormal conference and ghost hunt not far from there at a plantation house.
Oh,
But so she said, "Hey, we investigated your room, and we just wanted to let you know. Do you have a K2 with you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've got two. I don't, what's up?" And she said, "Don't focus on the windows around the bay window area. Look at the bathroom window." And I thought, "Oh my God, did she get tossed out the bathroom window? What's going on?" And sure enough, I had activity in that window, and but it's not far from this dresser, Christopher Fisher. The dresser is a beautiful, I guess it's a dark pine, and it's got this huge, majestic mirror that goes with it. And the mirror clearly is of the period of the 1800s because it's a bit scratchy. You can see that it's, blown glass too. You can see where it's got a little wave to it. And that was the mirror I was
Wow.
using to scry. And then enters Chris Soucy, sits down right in front of it there. And he had investigated the room before. And he just leans up against it. He was going to do the Estes method. And he had his blindfold fold on. And he was putting the things, in his ears to do because it's blind, and you're just listening to the ghost box. We're asking the questions. And he can't hear the questions. He's just repeating what he hears. So who's hearing it but the spirit? He's repeating what the spirit is saying. It was incredible. It was right on track, and he was even able to pick up some of the inflection of what he heard. And man, it was right on track. And but what I found very interesting was that he felt something touch him out of that mirror, not knowing that I had just had that experience.
With
yeah, it was very strange.
hotels being epicenter of the community, a lot of times people live there because they don't have a place to go and other things, and guests. They collect all that energy from all those lives that been
That's
there. I bet it's a pretty interesting place.
Yes, and the family lived there as well. And it was a center of a major malfunction when Mr. Fitzgerald died. He didn't have his will. His will wasn't set up
Yep.
properly. So the only thing I read that I was able to get to the bottom of was that sisters got involved in it, and they were fighting over all of it. So let's see if
There's
I
a lot of
can.
family drama
Yeah.
around who would end up with it and who would end up
Mhm.
living in it, because they did take over residence of the hotel.
If I can download this, there's a video that someone just sent me. I heard it ding. I guess I should have told everybody that we were going to be on tonight because I think they're joining now. Here it is right here. Save. Now I'm going to send it to myself and see if we can play it in just a second. I don't want to hold up what we're talking about. But I fell in love with this hotel. Absolutely. The lady that runs it, she's got her baby with her, and her
Yeah.
husband works next door at at the restaurant next door. So it's still being lived in like the original family, and I feel like the hotel loves that. I feel the spirit, the overall spirit of the hotel feels like that's the way it should be. It's just enchanting.
Yeah, and having such a young baby present anyway is a source of joy for everybody who comes in contact with the baby. So there's a lot of countering energies going on, and the town itself is charming and small, and a community that really kind of knows each other and knows all the ins and outs of each other's lives. It is kind
Uh,
of a wondrous place. It is the hotel is built on an old cemetery. It was actually the original site was a cemetery, and the original building, the inn, was in front of the cemetery, but that building caught fire, and so they pushed back the construction to behind that building, and
right
in
on
order
top
to
of the
go right
cemetery.
on top of they had to move the cemetery out in order to build
It's
the
good
hotel.
that they moved the uh, the graves out to some other location because you don't often hear of that.
There's a lot of rumors that they didn't move all the bodies. They only moved the ones
Yeah,
that
that's what I
were
heard.
yeah, only the ones that were directly in line with the hotel, and everybody that was beyond it, they just moved the stones over to the new cemetery. Or so the rumor goes, I should say.
Excuse me.
You'll probably have to find
Excuse
out.
me.
You'll probably have to find out in an investigation to find out if that's the case.
Well, we actually did go down in the basement, and it was very active.
It's a very active
Um,
basement.
we heard footsteps in the hallway where my room was on the third floor, and no, on the second floor. We went down the steps, and my dogs took off after the footsteps. Ended up in a ballroom area, and I found that to be really interesting because I really feel like the little girls were in there playing, and the dogs were wanting to play.
On the first investigation I did last year, we were doing the Estes method in room 201, and the Estes method kept kind of pulling us and drawing us and basically telling us to go to the ballroom.
Are you
Like,
serious?
as we were trying to figure out, because it kept saying like, go, come, follow, go, where. And so we're like listing off places in the building, and it's like the ballroom, like, yes, go. And so we like tapped out of the Estes method and went down the hall. And we felt that it was the two girls. They are very active and very interactive.
Yeah.
So we were very happy with our investigation that night. And again, there was no ill will in the
None.
building. It didn't feel
None.
any of that. Even when we went down into the cellar, we kind of found ourselves all the way like around the corner at a doorway in the cellar. We started getting what seemed to be the narrative of a person who had died either in jail or he was under arrest, because there's a lot of prison talk. There's a lot of jail talk. Thief. He identified himself as a thief. And so there was a lot of this like, and then it kept coming back to, this is where I was buried. This is where
So he was part of the cemetery
so he
club
was a part of the
there.
cemetery. Yeah. Or
And
yeah.
that's what we ended up calling it, the cemetery club, because all these spirits that were coming through. Did you stay in this hotel? No. Oh, you're in the cemetery club,
Right,
and it was like, yeah. Now we do have a cemetery club. My husband and Blaine, the co-host, myself, my mom, a couple of the students that go with us places. We go to several cemeteries, and there's always a soldier that has some unfinished something that needs to be said or done, and the guys take care of it. And we end up making great friends. I mean, we've got a lot of spirit friends, and a lot of my spirit friends came with me, and they were able to meet everybody.
Well, that's another
Yeah.
good point too. When you have places like the Fitzpatrick or places that have great spiritual energy, a lot of times people are carrying spirits and they don't even realize it.
Yeah.
A lot of times they had been in one area that was haunted, and these kind of untethered souls are kind of looking for something to cling on to, and they'll just grab onto the brightest light, and sometimes that's you, and then you'll carry that spirit around, and sometimes you'll go to a new place that has a very warm energy, and then the spirit will detach. And so I think there are spirits at the Fitzgerald that have nothing to do with the Fitzgerald. They're not buried there. They're not, they're transient. They were brought there by people who had connections. And then the energy was enough to sustain them. They're like, oh, you know what? I could stay here. And there's energy abounding that, will sustain me, and I don't have to cling on to a person. I can be here. I think that's happened in Savannah a lot.
I think so too, because there's so many comings and goings, right?
So many comings and goings, but I hear so many ghost stories about ghosts on the street.
Oh, please tell me. I want to investigate in Savannah badly.
No, you hear, especially sensitive people who have sensitive or see ghosts. They are oftentimes like, oh, I saw a guy and he was like in 70s clothing, and he was just kind of standing in the square. And I was like, that's very interesting, because we all want them to be significant hauntings, right? We all want it to be like, this person was murdered on this spot, or there was some, incredible thing. But I think a lot of ghosts are just kind of not sure what to do next, and they kind of linger and they're hanging out. And so you see them on the side of the street, like walking on the sidewalk, and you wouldn't even know it. Like if you weren't able to, guess, because I can't tell you how many times you walk past a person in Savannah, and then you stop and you turn around to make sure they were really like,
did I really?
Is that really you? Okay, I can still see them. I'm okay. Because that's another thing, is sometimes people will. There's a lot of Savannah where people are dressed just a little off. You're like, you look like you're from a different time. But it's an art school. There's an art school here.
Well, that's what was going on with the person flagging us on the.
Yes, that's what I was going to tell you.
He did not look like he was in. His shirt was bright yellow, and it had some sort of white across here, and he had long hair, like from the 70s, area.
Actually, it's funny because you're describing the 70s ghost that I'm talking about. Is really seeing this kind of hippie-like guy.
He had bell bottoms on.
Right, exactly. That's how they describe him. They say that he's kind of like in a tie-dye shirt with bell bottoms, long hair, and it's bright. He's brightly colored.
Very brightly colored, and just like
that character. People walking by him like at night, and like I said, you turn to look, and people will turn and look, and he's not there.
Oh my God! I got to go see if I can connect with him again.
They'll drive around a square. And they'll see him like standing, on the sidewalk of a square, and they're like, "Oh, I got to see that guy again." They'll take around the square again, but the next time they come around the square, they can't figure out where he went. Yeah.
Lots of times people will say, "Oh, do they know they're dead?" Well, yeah, lots of times they do, but sometimes they don't know where they want to be next, and there's so many different dimensions. I mean, it could be that our dimensions kind of coincide, We don't know. There's so many things that we don't know, which is why this is such a fascinating discussion.
Yes, yeah, and that's one of those things that because it becomes difficult to quantify what we do know and what we don't know. It's like, so I always try to preface things with, I think, this is what I imagine. This is, from observation, the things I've seen and the things I've heard and the stories that I collect. They kind of paint a picture that feels reliable. You kind of get this sensation that there are, especially if you go like around the world. If you go around the world and you say, "Hey, how do you get a ghost?" And pretty much every culture on the face of the earth will agree that you don't disturb graves. The moment you disturb a grave, you're going to get a ghost. That's like the number one, like, how to get a ghost. Because I think you even mentioned Pliny the Younger. The story.
Yes,
of Pliny the Younger.
Yes.
Yeah, in your presentation. And I love that because Pliny the Younger, he was also in chains. And so it was the first chain ghost, the ghost that rattles chains.
I didn't realize. Okay, good.
Well, because even to a further extent, it was like, well, why do we see ghosts in chains? What's that all about? And what it was before they had like coffins or slabs, they needed to weigh the bodies down to keep them from coming up when the soil got wet. So they would bind them in heavy things, heavy objects, chains, to keep their, so that when it got rainy, the bodies didn't just come to the surface.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And so they're like, this, spirit had been bound in chains, put in a hole, and it covered up, but there was no marking for it. There was no grave for it. And it's like that, but that's the classic ghost story. It's the ghost story we
It
told
is.
all along, the same hour of the night, pointing, all of these elements that come from the ghost stories that we told all the way through. Just like when we started like seeing ghosts that look like sheets,
Right.
because those winding cloths we used to wrap spirits in, spirits, used to wrap our bodies in sheets to kind of keep it all in one place, because there's a lot of fear of animals. There's a lot of fear of other things. So covering a body and tucking it and tying it tight. But I love tracing those stories because it's like, oh, that's
Aren't
influenced
you
us even today.
smart?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I just love talking to you. I just love talking to you and your wife. She's adorable.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, just beautiful. You guys are a dynamic duo. Now, I do have to ask you, and I'm pretty sure you'll know this. Can you tell me a little bit about this place, the Pink House of Savannah?
Yeah, of course. So the Pink House was built by a man named Havisham, and I believe it was for his daughter's wedding. It was going to be the wedding house, the
Oh
place that
Lord.
his daughter and his son-in-law would live. It is currently this tavern and high-end restaurant. Like, you want to come to Savannah and be fancy, you go to the Pink House. And everybody has great stories about why the Pink House is pink, and they'll tell you that it's originally white plaster, and the blood of innocence seeped through the pink and turned the place pink. And some people will be like, oh well, it's the red brick under white plaster, and the red brick is seeping
Now
through the
that
white
makes
plaster.
sense.
All these make sense. And also, they painted it pink. It's pink because having colored houses was a sign of wealth.
Oh,
When you want to show off, you make your house a color, because color, painting your house was
that
at one
costs.
time it costs so much to do that.
Yeah.
And red was the most expensive color, at the time, because I think indigo took it over, purple took it over. But at one point, if you wanted to show wealth, you put red. So that's why a lot of houses have red doors, because they're like, this is how wealthy we are. We can afford to paint our door red. But the ghost of the Pink House is fascinating because everybody agrees that it is General Havisham, the original master of the house, the original builder and owner of the house. And his presence is felt primarily. There's a bar in the cellar where people get the sensation of him. But more than anywhere else, the women's bathroom.
Oh no.
Women find themselves locked in the bathroom all the time. Women find
Playing
themselves kind of,
pranks.
pinched or poked or prodded. So it's like, oh, he's kind of a creep. It's like, oh,
Like,
and it's like,
dude.
yeah, dude. And that kind of is the interesting thing about the kinds of ghosts that you get, because you start to really form like the personality of the ghost. And it's like, oh, I kind of know, General Havisham is a hard drinker and he likes his women. That
Yeah.
kind of like creates this image of who he must have been.
That totally suits him, doesn't it? Oh
Yeah.
my God. Mr. Fisher, I know you're enjoying this history.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. He's looking up the Pink House right now. Okay, let me show it for you guys. Sonny, I'm gonna here it is. There's your Pink House.
And it is
quietly.
extraordinary food. If you get a chance to go, by all means, go. It is where locals will go for special occasions. So that it's got this, great sterling reputation, and the food is outstanding.
I used to be really close friends with the owners of the Sorrel Weed home in
Oh,
Savannah.
sure. Yes, absolutely.
And I'm pretty sure, well, I don't know if they were the owners or if they're the ones that managed the tours,
Right.
but things have changed in the 16 years that I was friends with them. So it's a different group of people now. This is the Sorrel Weed home.
Yes, it is.
And I absolutely love it. I have always wanted to investigate there.
It is fantastically haunted. And I want to say they just recently started doing like overnight investigations for people. They're like
Wow.
opening it up as a tour that you can come in after their last tour and book time to actually investigate their late night there. And they have, if you get a chance, go to their TikTok, the Sorrel Weed TikTok. They put a lot of evidence that comes because
Really?
they have security cameras all over the building. So you'll
Now,
see like lights coming on. You'll see cabinet doors opening. You'll see people like experiencing things. It is woefully haunted. It is a woefully haunted house. I've had
wow.
a couple of experiences in that house, and they are uh, hard to refute because they have such solid sensation to them.
Um, the Sorrelweed home has a sordid love affair
Yes, yes, it
gone
does.
wrong. Okay.
Yes.
Now, back to the Washington, Georgia Fitzgerald Hotel. There was a love affair
Also a
there.
sordid affair.
Yes, the mistress was chunked out the window. But as it turns out, according to the investigation that we did, now it could have been some of the ghosts in the cemetery club. I don't know. But he said that he was in love with her and she was pregnant and she
Oh.
was very sick and she couldn't have the baby, but she didn't want to live without the baby. And she was going to commit suicide and he was trying to stop her. And so she was trying to, she had changed her mind. He agreed to help her with this. Obviously they weren't married, but he was a younger man. It wasn't old Mr. Fitzgerald, it was the younger son,
Right.
according to this story. I don't know, maybe they're just pulling my leg.
Well, I think in the story that I heard, it was the younger
Okay, good.
son, because it
See,
was so the story I heard, it was actually like a New Year's Eve party.
yeah, he said it was during a party. See,
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
was
know
during a
about
party,
that.
and it was that room was like the coat room. It was where all the coats were, and he had snuck into the room with his mistress, and supposedly his wife came in and chased the mistress, and out the window the mistress went. Whether it was thrown, jumped, nobody knows. And it's a hard story to verify. Like we tried a lot of ways to like get some kind of like story, but it was a wealthy
Yeah,
family.
yeah,
There's a good chance that if it did happen, they wouldn't want it in press. They wouldn't want
yeah.
anything about it.
Keep it
But
quiet.
one of the things I found interesting when we came into your room, when we came into the room, was I had heard stories of her being sick, that she was
Oh,
ill, but it was a conflicting story because, and I hadn't heard pregnant, but that makes sense. I can live with that. But what I found interesting was I came into your room, and when I came into your room, you had an EMF reader on your bed going off. And when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." I think somebody once told me that that the woman was sick in this bed, and I was like, or not this bed, but the bed that was in the room. And I was like, I wonder if that's what's kicking off this EMF reader.
I'm trying to manage my dog. Come here, Luna. You want to say hey to Chris?
Hey.
She's trying to photobomb.
Oh,
She's
sure. Yeah, no, of course.
so if I look distracted there for a second, it was her fault.
That's
You remember
perfectly fine.
Ginger? There's
Yes.
Ginger.
Oh, hey. Oh, look at you.
She's such a little ghost hunter. She really is. Yes, I did have the K2 meter on the bed because I felt someone sit down on the bed with us after we got still, because Mindy said, okay, everybody get seated and be still. And so that's what we did, because we were doing an EMF session. We did 3 in a row, and we did catch a voice that we wanted to, maybe get Flip to go back and listen
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
But when she's decided here she is. There she is. I love you too. Yeah. Oh my goodness, these babies are something else. They're great to investigate with, like you said. They have a different field of vision too, just like
Oh,
children.
absolutely.
They
Yeah.
have children have full spectrum vision until they're. Some people are 8. Some people are between the ages of 6 and 7 before theirs stops because their cornea hardens. But these guys, you can see and hear and smell stuff, can't you? Yeah. And she just thought it was the greatest thing going in that ballroom with
Oh,
those
yeah.
girls.
Yeah.
Both of them did. So all of that, talking about the love affair, and it's interesting that you've been able to confirm some of the things that we saw and heard. She let me know that she was some type of minority. Okay, she
Oh,
had
that's
some,
interesting too.
she was of, which is one of the reasons why she didn't mind talking to me. She was of some sort of mixed descent, and she was very sick. She was pregnant, and she just didn't think she was gonna make it through.
That is
She didn't think,
fascinating.
yeah, and so she was going to commit suicide.
Hmm.
She was confronted. She did mention that, but there's just a lot. The whole thing was a lot, and she was trying to get back in the room,
Yeah.
like, and she fell. And he talked about how he showed me how he grew old, and how he was so unhappy without her. And she was so sad that he went through that, and she said, I was forever young. He was the one that had it hard, and that's why they stay there, because they're able to be together.
Sure.
And when people come into the room, they just go in that little mirror, and that's like a whole dimension there, because between the glass and then the backing, in between there, bouncing back and forth, that's a great space for spirits to go. That's, at least that's the lore of
Oh yeah.
mirrors.
I'm a huge fan of mirror lore, and because every culture, the fact that every culture has mirror lore tells you something right there. It tells you
Mhm.
enough to know, and that in China they'll use mirrors to ward off evil spirits. They'll put them in windows. They'll to
Right.
keep the spirits, because they're traps. And almost every culture kind of understands it, because a lot of cultures will cover a mirror when there's
When
when
someone
there's
dies,
a
yes.
funeral. And one of the stories was that they're afraid that the spirit will go into the mirror,
See?
thinking that it's another room.
Hmm.
Because they can see the room on the other side. And when I was a child, I had read a book that was fully based on mirror lore, and they talked about how mirrors are all portals. They're all like windows from this other place. And in the book, I'm guessing it was written in the 60s or maybe even earlier, suggested that it was just like a place of darkness, that there's like this vast, never-ending darkness that is the gap between our worlds, between the living and the dead. There's just like this endless gap of darkness, and in there possibilities exist, and fears and nightmares and things that aren't supposed to be, but they do because they plague us, and they're behind that sheen of glass, and that's all that's keeping them from coming out. That's why breaking a glass is bad luck, because the spirits can come through the glass. and
That's
um,
incredible.
and there's great stories, because they're like, every mirror has like a guardian. Every mirror has a spirit that latches onto it, because the biggest and strongest spirit will go to the light of the mirror, because it's like a window, and just wait there. And they won't let other spirits come, because if other spirits come, they're the strongest. They say, get away. And sometimes there's conflict behind mirrors, which causes like rooms, when you go into a room and you're like, oh, there's an unsettlement, and it's coming from the mirror. You're like, it seems to be this mirror. A lot of people think that it's because the spirits behind the mirror are trying to fight for control of the window into our
Right,
world.
right. Something interesting, two things about mirrors with some investigations I've done. One was they felt like a spirit that they were talking to had been pulled into a mirror.
Yes. Yeah,
And
absolutely. You can use mirrors in rudimentary. Uh, I'm hesitant to use the word exorcism, but banishing of spirits.
that is
You
correct.
can send the spirit into the mirror, and they're compelled by the mirror. So there's a
I am
lot
so impressed
to it.
with you, Susie. I'm so impressed with you. See, my grandmother, I ended up reading about, and we discussed, and that type of thing. You can actually create a box
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
covered in mirrors on the inside,
Yes.
so that they're inside this and that's sort of like a Dybbuk
A Dybbuk
box.
box. That's where the Dybbuk box,
Yeah.
because and a secret of the trade. A Dybbuk box is not. That's just nonsense. It's a word we're using to describe the box you just talked about. Um, Almost every culture that has dealt with dark spirits have used boxes to contain them. they will lure them to boxes, and the proof of it is we have lots of stories that kind of have the remnants of it. One of the biggest being the genie in a lamp.
In the lamp, yes.
Capturing, and a lot of people don't realize that genies, the jinn, are a variety of demon, a very powerful demon. And so
I love you. Oh my God, you know these things.
well, and so coming up with ways to trap them and to trick them into small confined spaces.
Right.
Exorcists have used that notion, and again, I'm using exorcists, but I don't mean like papal or Catholic exorcists. I just mean people who banish spirits.
The person that manages the energies,
right.
Yes. Shaman.
Shaman.
Clergy.
Shaman are an excellent example, because I think
even witches, because that's what I use, and I'm not witchy.
Right.
A shaman. Well, yep. Witchy. I don't know what that is either, but
they even tell people to form a box in your mind and think of a box as a protective place, and the spirit that is bothering you can trap in your mental box, in the box in your mind, and construct it out of light, is what they always say. Construct a box out of light, and then you can trap the spirit in it. And I'm like, that's it's all very interesting, because I want to say, is your mother a Filipino?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Filipinos who will use eggs.
That is correct.
They'll pull spirits into eggs. It's the same thing. The egg is the vessel.
And I use eggs to pull stuff out of people.
And you pull eggs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you use eggs because eggs have
those
this.
Work too.
They do work, don't they, Christopher?
They do.
Yeah.
Well, because the eggs are a mystery to spirits, because it's like, that's life. There's a life essence to it, and that's really what spirits want. They want life. They want life.
They want the energy. Well, they can't eat anymore. They have to have the energy from somewhere. Exactly. And usually when I do investigations, I do something a little silly, but I'm kind of transparent. What I'm thinking is what's coming out. I'll tell them to go to the refrigerator, get behind the refrigerator, and get the energy from it. So, and sometimes that helps when they start getting tired. I'll say, just go in there to the refrigerator, get behind it, go to the washing machine or dryer, if they're running, and get your energy that way. So Sunglass Island, thank you. He said he's been in the pirate's house and he would love to investigate there. I would too.
It would be amazing. It's incredible. A lot of people don't realize that the pirate's house is actually built around the oldest house in Savannah, which was originally a greenhouse for the experimental gardens. And so the pirate's house, the tavern there, is actually a remnant of a kind of a period after the experimental gardens failed. The experimental gardens, they were supposed to build. They're supposed to get silkworms. Because that was the whole plan of Savannah. They were going to mulberry trees with silkworms, and it's going to be great. But the silkworms didn't like the climate, and they couldn't cultivate the silk. And so that experiment kind of went awry, and this, the pirate's house as it is, storied to be, was what took its place.
We have Michael Robert, who is in the Dominican, watching, and then Irene and several of her team from Japan are watching. So we've got a lot of people. And I see
international people.
Yes, and we have some people in Italy that enjoy watching, and there goes. Okay, yeah, they are watching. So what you see right now, guys, that are watching on Facebook and that, just remember we are simulcasting in many locations, and I have a chat otherwise, and so this is an international show, and I love it. I love having someone that can discuss lore and history and all the things that we're talking about, even different countries and legends.
I used to live in Vicenza, Italy, which is
really, oh gosh,
about an hour outside of Venice, and we had amazing stories that come from that region, because Italy is rich with kind of like the carrying the modern civilization on its shoulders, both in its Roman conquest, and then in its religious, Catholic conquest. It really does have this amazing rich, and the pressure there for supernatural advancement is so hard, and so many stories, and a lot of them are like religiously based. Like there was a monastery nearby where they said that the monks were all training to learn how to um, encounter demons, and the way they did this was by taking the old texts of grimoires and practicing the spells. And so the
Isn't that
story,
something?
yeah, the story basically went that they got corrupted by their
Right.
research. They were researching so hard that they became satanic in their practice of, hoping to learn how to fight Satan. They became, immersed in it. I was like, that's such a good story.
It is. It is a
It's an
good
amazing
story.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is how a lot of that happens. I know a lot of
Slippery
people that
slope. I
have
mean,
been
yeah,
been seduced by, seduced by the power.
it's this. Well, and knowledge is the most intoxicating thing you can give a person. And like
Yes.
the more knowledge you get, you're like, oh, I'll just a little more. I'll just get a little more. I need to know what's on the other side, because a lot of people will phrase the term occult and be like, occult, and it's horrible. And occult simply means hidden. It means
Thank
hidden
you.
knowledge.
Hidden
But we've
knowledge.
we've turned hidden knowledge into forbidden knowledge, and it's like those things are actually not the same. Sometimes they're hidden for ill reasons. They hid it from us to our detriment, not for our betterment. And so
As
it's
as is the
fascinating.
truth about many things.
As is the truth about many things.
Many
Absolutely.
things. So I'm going to go back to, we were talking about mistresses and sordid affairs
We
and
were
these
indeed.
big,
Yes.
beautiful homes. And, we talked about that sorrel weed home. And
Mhm.
I bounced back to what we experienced at the Washington, Georgia hotel, the Fitzpatrick. Well, now we can compare that to the sorrel weed home in Savannah, because there is one of the ladies that may have committed suicide. So basically, I guess the story is based off the Sorrel Weed Home website. There was or you can also go to like ghostsandgravestones.com, Savannah Haunted History.
Oh, sure.
It
There's
talks a
there's
good bit.
millions of sources. If you look up sorrel
Yes,
weed, you'll get
just
a lot of different things.
yeah, go with it. Yeah, because there's so much. It's a hotbed of ghostly activity in the Sorrelweed home because of the tragedy and the suicide. So the wife Matilda,
Yep.
the basically she married Francis, and Francis was
Yep.
the bomb, right?
He was indeed.
Yes, and so he had a young slave girl named Molly
Yep.
that he was really in love with. And Matilda's like, okay, well, what about me? And so there were suicides based off of that. And these deaths actually took place at another location just down the block.
Actually, it was right
But
next door.
okay,
It was
so
literally the next building over.
okay, well, that's I'm going off that website, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Well,
even
it's because
better.
the address was
Oh,
several numbers away, but the estate was so large that it was the next house over. So it's so confusing because most people believe that Matilda threw herself off of the balcony of
uh-huh.
the Sorrelweed house. But here's a little something that they don't talk about.
Oh, do
But
tell.
although before we go any further, Molly, the slave, hanged herself or was hanged. There's a lot of question as to how she died, but Molly was hanged, right? At the
Mm.
Fitzpatrick Hotel, the first woman hanged in the state of Georgia by the state, not the colony, the state. Her name was Molly too. Remember the woman who was hanged at the Fitzpatrick
That's
Hotel
right.
was
That's
Molly.
right.
I
Was
was like,
Molly.
oh, that's very strange. But before Matilda, Francis had a wife named Lucinda. Lucinda was Matilda's older sister.
Oh, good grief.
And Lucinda died of yellow fever. Now, what I find interesting, and I've posted this a couple of times when we're talking about it, it's a very suppressed history that that there was a first wife. Lucinda died
Wow.
of yellow fever. The ghost that most people see is a woman in black with a black veil. A lot of times they say they see this woman in black with the black veil walking, around the outer balconies, sometimes in the main parlor rooms. and that's one of the big ghosts. They also see children. Which is strange.
Bless you, baby. Bless you. Oh, bless you.
But the woman in black always brought an interesting question, because the question was, why would Matilda be dressed in black? Why would she be wearing the funereal veil? And the answer was, it's far more likely that a person who is suffering from yellow fever, which causes lesions on the skin, ugly coloring of the skin, bruising, bleeding from the nose, ears, eyes, and mouth.
It was
to wear
Lucinda.
a veil, right? To cover yourself up so that people would not be so horrified of your presence. And I always thought that was interesting. And it wasn't something that a lot of people talked about. And they kind of like always shove it aside. And I was like, I think there's something more to the fact that someone suffered because yellow fever is also a terrible death. It's basically being a living corpse until your body can't stand it anymore. Because you rot.
Poor thing.
Yeah, exactly. So she was always suffering. She was in deep suffering, and then she died. And I was like, to me, those are the conditions that are more likely to create a haunting than anything else. Prolonged suffering is where that emotional output.
The woman that died wearing this, she died from yellow fever. She was attached to this, and you can feel where she would rub it and pray, and she was not given her the prayers after
her last rites.
Thank you. There it is, the last rites, and that's why she was connected to this. She didn't really. It didn't.
It was the only faith. Yeah.
She was so concerned about. Yeah, I need my last rites, and they were like, no, you nasty, and so,
oh no,
you nasty, we're not getting near you, from over here. Good luck to you, and so you can feel right where she had worn it, and when I touched this, I could feel her, the angst and the anxious prayers, and it was her death. Her death had been consumed. Had been put into this, she was completely consumed by the mourning of her own death, and because she had been a beautiful woman, and and she had to die alone, and so I had to give her last rites, and then when she left, this is a wonderful feeling necklace. Now I wear it all the time, so it's interesting.
It's interesting because we tend to talk a lot about like conditions of hauntings, reasons for hauntings, and the notion that as you suffer, as you're dying, your knowledge of your death is like slowly opening the door, to the other side, and the longer you suffer, the more that door can be open for spirits to come in and out of, and again, you're dealing with so many spirits that really want this world. They want this physical, tangible world. I'm
not sure why.
Well, it's interesting.
I haven't put that together in my head yet. I mean, I recently had a patient in hospice.
Yes.
And she wanted to do some spiritual training before her passing.
Yes.
And it was a fascinating time of my life, listening to her and the things that she already knew. And then I actually did a Reiki attunement on her as she was transitioning, and what I saw was unbelievable. It was just like, you've seen graphics on movies where, part of someone is just fading, fading away. It was like that was being pulled, and I was pulling all the energy that I could to her, and it was going, with her, it was like, I can't explain it, but it was just absolutely incredible. It was tragic. It was, I miss her so much, but I learned a lot.
Oh, sure.
And so as I was doing that, I could also tell that there were other people waiting for her that already crossed. And I've been picking up along within that whole study and that experience how many spirits wanted to be in this side of things. And I'm like, why? Why do you want to be here?
Well, it's mostly fear of the thing that they don't, because they spent their whole life trying to get this tactile, existence to understand it. And then you're saying, well, this is going to be something new, but we can't tell you what it is. We can't explain it. You'll never understand it. You just have to go do it. And it's like, I'd rather have that physical world. And really, it's the classic unfinished business.
Oh, that's true.
A
That's
lot of
true.
people believe that unfinished business simply means that they have to avenge their death, or they have to proclaim their love, or they have to do something super specific. But when you think about it, sometimes the unfinished business is just being alive. That they didn't experience the level of life that they truly wanted to have, and without that experience, without this satisfaction of the life that they wished they had, they're going to be miserable. They're anchored to this world, desperate for it. And I always say that a lot of people who encounter what they believe are demons are really just people who've lost sight of every other
Oh,
thing. They've just become
100%.
so singular in their pursuit of whatever it is, even if it was a good thing, even if what they wanted was good, the fact that they stopped thinking about, empathizing with others, the harm that they can cause, they're so focused on having that thing. That to me is demonic. That to me is a destructive force that comes into people's lives, and they're after something specific. And sometimes you can help them. Sometimes you can be like, here's the thing you wished you had, and now you can be at peace. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's something that is indescribable even to the entity. They're just hungry. They're just starving
Yeah.
for it.
Now, honestly, I feel like one of the reasons why I teach ghost hunting or parapsychology in general, why I've studied it and had anything to do with it all this time, is because I'm very disappointed in listening to certain investigators. They're trying so hard to be so precise in the methodology of how that they're investigating, that they're not realizing they're talking to a person, or an entity that had been incarnate at one point. Or hey, let's say they weren't incarnate. Let's say that it's a being that's got an
It's never been
intelligence
human,
that's
right?
never been human.
Yeah,
Maybe some type of cryptid that's interdimensional. Let's say it might be an angel. It could, there's many things, elementals.
Or it
So,
could be a demon.
well, yeah, that's
absolutely.
true. So if you're looking at these things, and you're having these discussions, knock 3 times, or say yes for this and light for that and whatever. Let's get back to let's having a conversation. And I was talking to a gentleman on the it was the Battleship North Carolina, and his name's Boyd, and he showed me his name on the placard on the ship. And oh my gosh, he was a handsome thing. I saw him. He filled up the entire door. I was leading the group through, and I realized that these gentlemen had passed away on the toilet. They were actually, bombed on the toilet.
Sure.
And I came around, I'm like, they were killed in here. And I looked and I said, I'm in the toilet. You mean to tell me they died on the toilet? And I was like, oh my God, my dogs follow me to the bathroom and watch the door. When you are at your most helpless time,
Absolutely.
oh, what a horrible thing. And, but there are,
That would be scary.
absolutely. But let's don't forget that that ship is actually the memorial for the whole state of North Carolina, for the
Yeah.
11,000 people that died, soldiers of that state from World War II. And so what Boyd told me was that they actually have gatherings where these soldiers that were on the ship, okay, they're bringing family. And see, like I said, this is a place where all of these people are honored. So all these soldiers of World War II from that state, or I guess it could be anywhere, but I would assume mostly from that state, are bringing even their spirit families to
Oh,
this
sure.
ship.
Yeah,
And he said that
absolutely.
there's a party all the time.
Yeah.
And we had a long discussion about residual hauntings, that there are some there and they're just continuing to happen. And it was
Yeah.
disturbing him. And I said, no, 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 no. Don't let it bother you, because I know you see it happening over and over and you want it to stop. You're worried about these people, but there's no intelligence there.
Right.
They're
Right.
just going to repeat. You can't interrupt it. And I could feel his relief, like, oh, that's good. But the things that he told me that I would never have guessed, that once we got past the, okay, this is a machine that's not going to hurt you, and I just feel like there's too much being missed.
Oh, absolutely. Because I think that there is, in many spirits' lives at least, a second life, another chance to grow, learn, advance, evolve. And some spirits, some people, they're ready. They're ready to
They're
go,
ready to roll.
and
Yep.
they're ready. Some come back again and again and again, and some stay in the spirit realm, learning whatever it is that they need to learn. Whenever we talk about it, it's like there's no one answer. There's no one way to know. And when you go all around, you find how different cultures had recognized what's happening, and they come up with names, these wonderful, beautiful names, you know, um, for phenomena. Like one of my favorites, I think it's in the Navajo tradition, is the Chidi, which suggests that the good parts of us go on. The bad parts of us, the parts of us that needed to be worked on, stay behind, and that uh, comes in a form that is like what we would typify as a demon, and it can make you sick if you breathe it in, because it's made of little particles of the ill intent that you may have had going on. So no matter how good you are,
Wow.
they recognize we all still have foibles and weaknesses, and we all still carry angers and fears, and those things are the things we shed in order to leave this plane, in order to leave. And I was like, that's so interesting, because a lot of people ask, why are so many ghosts, mean or dark? Are all people dark? It's like, well,
That's
no.
a
There's a chance that maybe our light goes on, but our dark stays.
yeah.
Maybe that's what's happening. And then I learned, no, there's just as many really nice ghosts. That it's like just like you can meet 1,000 people and not one of them is going to be a killer. Not one of them is going to be a serial killer.
That's
One of
right.
them might be, but for the most part, the vast majority of them are not going to be horrible people, and that's the same with ghosts. You're probably going to come in contact with ghosts all your life, and they're going to leave you be. They're not going to bother you. They're not interested in causing you damage or harm or inflicting pain or anything. We just have a squeaky wheel gets the oil situation with
Right.
with ghosts.
Well, the Cherokee, I know the Seminole, the Cherokee. I'm still studying about Creek, but I
Oh,
know
sure.
that the Iroquois. Um, we believe that the plane of the supernatural, where spirits go, actually rule the earth. That they're the ones that are in control. That's why our ancestors are guiding us, helping us get the most out of the life that we're in now, and that they make the commitment after they pass to stay with their descendants for 7 generations.
Yeah,
So
that's a
that's
beautiful concept too.
and so
Because
that's sort of the reciprocal of what you're talking about, that they have to dump something in order to
yeah,
leave the plane. And I'm saying, and this is really what I feel, that nah, we're not leaving this plane. We'll be in our own plane, but we're going to. There's some more work to do.
oh
You
sure.
know.
Well, and it's funny because a lot of, and this is something that I worry about sometimes with just American culture as a whole. So many cultures hinge much on their ancestors. They hinge much on the connection to their ancestor, following their ancestors, being connected to their ancestors, calling upon them, not just for
Right.
guidance, but for literal physical help, calling
Thank
on
you.
them to do
And I
and be
do that.
active and be yeah and be present. And I always point out Mulan, the movie Mulan, because there's a whole scene full of her ancestors watching from the crypts and
Yeah.
sending a dragon to go help her. And it's like that is a notion of how important family and familial ties are, and how important a lot of people know Savannah from Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, and
Yes.
what they know of the Garden of Good and Evil is that it's a cemetery. It's like, yeah, but you're missing one of the big points when you're doing natural magic, like these closed systems, voodoo, hoodoo, root doctoring, these things, and you go to a cemetery, you're going to your ancestors' bones. You're actually
Yes.
going to the bones of the people who are tied to you on the other side, and you are bringing that connection to fruit. You're actually utilizing that connection to affect a change in the physical world, which becomes such an important part of legacy, which we as a culture and I'm speaking the modern Western culture, has really started to tamp down on the idea of honoring our ancestors in that blood familial line.
Isn't that something? Thank you, David. I'm glad you're enjoying the show. He's one of my students, and he loves these shows. He really has learned a lot, I think. And Michael had a question, but he hasn't come back with it.
Yep.
I did want to throw out there that early Filipinos believed in the spirit of the dead,
Yes.
and they believed that the dead actually became all one spirit.
Yes.
And they would offer sacrifices or like gifts to appease them. And animals, trees, rocks, and these kinds of things. It came more from Polynesian world, but the spirit
Right.
of the dead is what they actually looked at. And I've learned a little bit more about that type, my ancestry there. My fourth great grandmother was the Great Purple Witch of the Philippines, and so
Oh, wow.
I feel like some of the things that I've picked up on from that is something that's in my blood, because
Well,
I didn't have anybody really to teach me. But my indigenous side, oh yeah, lots and lots of teaching there. But the Filipinos would trace their family history to their ancestors in order to understand their own motivation. It helped them to develop empathy, very similar to the Cherokee, how the Cherokee has taught them about their ancestors, and how to make them happy. And there's always honor that's through that, and the fights that are fought, and to be brave, and to be grateful, and to be aware. Complete sidebar, but this will make my point. The Navajo tribe, um, I think this was in the early to mid 80s. There was a little, bless them, this sweet little couple. They had a little baby. They had, they're fairly newlyweds, had this little baby, and they were living in this little trailer on the reservation. Now, the tribe there at that time, especially, was very, very poor, very impoverished. And the mommy got really sick. And I mean, she went down quick. And when she passed away, it killed her husband. I mean, he was just, and during the funeral, he actually coded. They brought him back. He refused to go to the hospital that she died in. They had to take him to the other one, and just as soon as he got there, he passed. And it just kept, then it started going through the tribe, and there was just one after another after another. So here's my point. A shaman from the Navajo tribe met with some scientists, and they were trying anything to get information. And he said that our observation that has been taught to us through these many generations has said that if we have a really wet winter and these pine acorns drop, that Navajo will die.
Oh.
And it was very interesting. I might have a little bit of that wrong, but regardless,
yeah,
it can be.
but
Please Google it.
That link.
Yes, and when they looked that up, they were able to figure out, based off the investigation of these other people and the homes that they were dealing with, that mice that were deer mice were actually and the reason why there were so many of them is because they were eating those acorns, those pine acorns that they were talking about. And so they were thriving and living in those places. And there was something in the feces of those mice that was creating this illness. And if it had not been for the observation of the shaman from generations ago that explained this to current scientists that found the link, it would have never been resolved. And 28 other states have reported having that exact same problem with these types of the droppings with these mice.
Yes, yeah.
With this exact disease, and they've been able to how many millions, I know thousands upon thousands of people since the mid 80s have been saved because of something to do with a shamanic vision. I mean,
well, it's always amazing when you think about how through that level of observation, so many things, almost all of our early medicine was observing how nature interacted with people and learning that, well,
Right.
this particular herb, it's like, how do you know that herb is a healing herb? It is through absolute oneness with the environment and knowing how the environment works and how it affects people and how people
Mhm.
thrive in certain conditions and what is going on, and we're constantly
Mhm.
reverting back to ancient knowledge. For the longest time, there was a such a push against like meridians
Yes.
that the acupuncturists use. There's like, that's voodoo, that's not true, that's not real. And now we use it regularly in Western medicine because it is a
Yes.
correct approximation of how our nervous system is set up.
Mhm.
And it's like
Right.
we we
100%.
we had to go through this whole gauntlet of science appeared where we actually denied that to
Mhm.
get back to an old knowledge,
It's a
an
full
ancient
circle,
knowledge.
an
Yeah,
ancient knowledge. Indigenous people, whether it be in the Hawaiian Islands, in the Philippines, in Korea, the indigenous people of the North American continents, or wherever, the ancient ones, they watched animals that were ill and what they ate and how they were able to recover, because the Great Spirit told those animals they're listening how to what do you call it, when they go south for the winter and when they're
migrate. Yeah,
migrating, and whenever they're giving birth to their children, how to take care of them. They're listening to their instincts.
absolutely,
We are the only
100%.
animal on the earth that doesn't.
Well, and what's interesting is
Well, some of us don't.
the
Yeah.
one of the tenets of Western civilization was to suppress all of that natural thing because we became so scientifically minded that if it couldn't be scientifically quantified, we tended to treat it, as superstition. And it's like,
Right.
a lot of superstitions are born of knowledge. A lot of superstitions are born of observation.
Right.
And then on top of that, we had the need for people to look to a single source for all of their spiritual knowledge. And so we started, right out killing anybody who had spiritual knowledge, anybody who could oppose spiritual knowledge. You got a person who could say, I can heal you using these herbs. It's like, well, I'm going to call that witchcraft. I'm going to burn you at the stake so that we don't have this diverse group of people looking in all directions. They all have to look at this as their only source of
Mhm.
truth. And that becomes a very polarizing thing because then the entire society learns to deny and dismiss the supernatural, and
Right.
they decide that the supernatural has no place in the natural world. And it's like, but it is still nature. There's so much of it that is still just nature.
Mhm.
We choose to extract ourselves from it by suggesting that it doesn't exist. Or it's like, it's one of the hardest things, especially as when you tell people, oh, I'm a ghost hunter, which I never do. I never actually use the word hunter.
I know.
It's
I noticed you're an
I'm an
enthusiast.
enthusiast. I'm a ghost enthusiast.
I love that word.
I
Perfect.
feel very strong about the paranormal world and supernatural world, but the suggestion of hunting suggests that we're going to catch it or kill it. It has this connotation to it that there's an end goal, and I don't think there is an end goal. It's all about learning and growing. So being an
Mhm.
enthusiast suits me better.
So
But
what?
when you tell people, they're quick to be like, "Oh, boogity boogity," and you're like,
Boogity boogity.
"Oh."
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Michael has a question for us. Okay. He's saying, yes, I do have a question. My question is, how can you determine if they're demons or not? Because as we know, demons do impersonate something, that they're not just to manipulate the person and thinking that they are who they think they are. Okay.
That's a good
So,
question.
so demons, first of all, not every demon is the same. There's not just one fantastic thing that is a demon that is all-knowing and has all the supernatural power, like what you see on The Exorcist and all of these other movies.
Yeah,
There's
those
many.
are archdemons, most likely.
Exactly. Christopher, can you tell them a little bit about demons?
Demons have a hierarchy like angels do.
Thank you, my love. He's so smart at this, Chris. Go ahead, Christopher.
They have they even in non-Western Christian denominations like the Orthodox Church, they speak of watchers, which is in the book of Enoch. Those are the highest ranking. Then archdemons and then the legion, which are the lower ranking levels.
Right. So not every demon has the same ability or the same knowledge. You can't just have a demon that's bothering you, and now all of a sudden it's going to, jump on you and you speak Latin.
They're
Um,
repulsed by a common thing, though. If you are up to date on your beliefs, they can't hurt you.
well, I'm going to answer it from an indigenous standpoint. Yes, you may be confused, or you may have a spirit say, oh, my name is Sally, and I'm a little girl that died of consumption, and I want to be friends with you. And the whole time it could be something that has very insidious
Man,
intentions on your life. However, you have to look at them in just like any other thing you do in life. You need to feel your heart, you need to feel your spirit. Are you listening to what is being said, and what does it make you feel? If you feel like you need to back up for a minute and you're getting a red flag, you might have someone that's, seems to be a really nice person in that, but then you might have a red flag that comes up. There's a reason for that, and you need to listen to that. And you don't need to trust every spirit that you talk to. Notice that Christopher Soucy and I, as we've talked about these different experiences we've had investigating, we've also talked about what we've researched after the fact. I'm not asking for these spirits to give me knowledge of how to raise my children, or what to how to invest my money, that type of thing. It was more along the lines of, nice to meet you, thank you for communicating with me. And I always state my intention first, always, because I feel like it opens up the communication. It's like, Michael, if you were a spirit, I would say, hi, my name is Lee. I understand your name is Michael. Thank you for your, saying hello. I'm here to make friends. I'm not here to judge you. I just want to know, what was your life like and why you're still here. I'd just like to talk to you. And, I'd like to, see if there's anything that I can tell you, because I'm from a different era. Do you feel like talking to me? And the next thing you know, you're getting responses, and they'll disclose information about maybe where they're buried, how they got there, what they suffered through, whether it be an illness or some sort of prejudiceness. You just never know what you're going to find out, because you're really speaking to living history. Now, I'm not saying that demons don't exist. Clearly, Christopher already said they do exist, and I know that they do. I've had experiences with them. But I will say that only 1% of the investigations that I have personally experienced, and I was on a team called Spiritual Warfare Alliance team, and we traveled all over the Southeast only because I couldn't go everywhere. I had to go where I could drive or fly, and we searched for demonic cases, and people would call us and say, we need help. And out of that, we had 2 out of all of those years that we did this. And, they were pretty intense. And Michael, if you're interested in those cases, I can disclose some of that to you. But just remember, a demon cannot influence you if you're not asking it for information that you're going to take in and use in your life.
correct.
Okay? That's called oppression. And if you wonder about spirits being able to attach themselves to you, and can a demon do that? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you cleaning up after yourself? Are you doing your prayers and the things that you need to do in order to basically do a detox spiritually? Because that's what it takes. In every religion, that is what people believe. So you have a right to be concerned, but it's not as prevalent as you may think. It's very prevalent in movies because that's what sells, because it's such a fantastic, it's horrifying, but it's a fantastic story.
And the
Now,
other thing that I have to elaborate on this is that since the Second Vatican, they try to blame the undefinable cases as manifestations and other stages of poltergeists. Adults normally are not able to do that,
That is correct.
and so that's incorrect teaching that the church is giving.
Christopher's quick to talk about incorrect teachings. Michael, I will let you know
I'm
that
sorry, Chris, if I get.
no, this is your passion. That's why I asked you. That's why you're here, big man. He's actually taught himself more than one language, and he studied every major religion and about demons and angels. He's going to help me with the week I'm doing. My next classes that start in September. He'll be helping with angels and demons. Something I wanted to throw out there. The Vatican actually, I might get my hand slapped on this, but it's 100% true, and it's all in the history. You just have to look for it. The Vatican actually said that they were going to do an exorcism on Hitler from a distance during World War II. And so the Pope and all his gang were together, and they were all working together to do an exorcism on Hitler, and they realized that it wasn't working. And from that, they actually had to go back and look at the incantations and things that they did back many, many generations before them to see what did they lose over the years that made them not so potent. And so they had to revamp because of Hitler, the Vatican had to go back through and revamp their entire exorcism protocol. And that's one of the reasons why they're so quick to say that they are not going to do an exorcism, because, they had the best of the best within the Vatican working on Hitler, and it didn't work.
My I can probably tell you why it didn't work too.
Please do.
Strong men and stuff like that, they're karmic. They're not demons. There's a difference. The only way to do that, there is cleansing rituals for that, but it's not practiced in the Western Church.
Right.
But it's in my denomination.
Yeah. He's in an Orthodox religion. He's in Russian Orthodox. Sure. Sorry if I'm telling your business, Christopher.
That's okay. We basically follow the same guy pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Like you guys have followed Great Spirit and whatnot. So
Great Spirit is plural, even though it's plural, although it's not spirits. Remember what I was saying, how the ancestors are part of the spirit all together.
You probably noticed something in the original writings that speaks of the Trinity as plural too, but it isn't now. But anyway, I digress. But you have to do karmic cleansing, and a lot of the time exorcisms in the Western Church are sometimes god awful. They just fail. Exorcism in the Eastern Church, you're pretty much guaranteed to get an effect out of it.
One of the things that I've enjoyed studying, and I hope that all my wonderful Japanese viewers, I hope you guys are going to appreciate this. I actually have been working with some friends in Japan that are within the churches there, and they experienced some ghosts right after the huge tsunami that just devastated Japan, the earthquake and then the tsunami. And there were several people saying that they had people coming to their door dripping wet, asking for help. And when they would run away to go get clothes and come back, there's nobody there, but there's water on the floor. And just a lot of people that were spiritually displaced. I mean, you're doing your life, and then all of a sudden now you're gone. And there was a lot of spiritual healing and cleanup from these poor people and what they suffered through. So I'm I'm enjoying listening to each one of these cases from what they can tell me, because it is confidential, but they actually have walked people through and done some wonderful things, some spirits through to help them understand what's happened. And as I say, just every time I speak, number one, I would love to do more about the science and supernatural, because it does exist, and I would like to draw some more parallels. And then the other thing is, healing comes in all stages of life, including death. Our spirits are always evolving, and that's what it's about. And if you're not helping the people around you evolve into better people, and you're not being one yourself, you're missing something. You're really missing something. You're not becoming what you're supposed to. You're not achieving what you're meant to be here for. So, back to Savannah. I'm looking at Tears of an Angel, the Bonaventure Cemetery.
Bonaventure Cemetery, which is the actual, so not the main Bonaventure Cemetery, but within the grounds of the Bonaventure Cemetery is the famed Garden of Good and Evil that is mentioned in the book Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, because at one point there is a section of Bonaventure that is old servants' graves, and the black quarter of Bonaventure. Bonaventure is a beautiful cemetery. It's right on the water overlooking the bluff of Savannah River, and it is hauntingly beautiful, and it
Very
is
gothic.
very gothic. And the home to a lot of the more romantic and romanticized ghost experiences that people are looking for. The swinging Spanish moss and the mausoleums and statuary. So yeah, to me, it is a very peaceful place. It doesn't have any context to it that it's one of those serene places where you kind of like, I see where people find their peace here. It is a well chosen place, because sometimes you go to a cemetery and it feels sharp and almost jangled, and it's like, is it because the people in the ground are not getting along? And sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just, or sometimes it's the soil itself is just kind of a rejective soil with lots of elements that aren't really conducive for rest or peace. Not Bonaventure. Bonaventure is beautifully.
I'm going to pop
tranquil.
this up for Christopher. Here's Bonaventure Cemetery. Isn't it beautiful?
It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous.
What a beautiful place to be at peace. Wow.
And you kind of hope that that's the notion of a cemetery, is for peace. And a lot of people will ask that question. Are cemeteries haunted? And it's like, it's such a difficult conversation, because to me, I believe that there will always be remnants of the spirit attached to the body, because it is the vessel that we travel in. And many people don't kind of realize how ancient a practice it is to put somebody in the ground and then carve their name into stone. And what that does, it bonds the spirit and the stone. And it is so that that spirit doesn't follow you home. It's so that the spirit has a place to dwell, because you don't want it to be at your house. You don't want to come home from Uncle Joe's funeral and have Uncle Joe in your house. So you say, Uncle Joe, look, here's your name in stone. And one of the interesting things that I had heard in my research was that there was a common belief that the spirit on earth can only last about as long as you can read a tombstone. And that's why the tombstone is there. The name holds the spirit until it can be released, until it's gone. And it takes that length. And I was like, that's an interesting way of looking at it, because I can tell you, I've been to many cemeteries where I'm looking at a tombstone, I can't read anything on it. I know there were letters there, but they're gone. And it's like, oh, that's interesting that the name faded. And it's like, that's kind of the nature of spirits. How vibrant can they be? How long can they last? And that's where you get like the idea of parasitic spirits, or spirits that have to feed upon people, feed upon energies. It's because they are fading and they need some kind of nourishment or some kind of energy source. And I always, I go through like the 3 phases of a spirit: is full apparition, where they look like Uncle Joe. And then after a while, everybody who knew Uncle Joe's dead, so they won't recognize Uncle Joe. and they'll refer to him as a man. There's a man here. There's a man. And that just wipes away all the features of Uncle Joe. And then he becomes a shadow. And how many times have we heard of the shadow man or the shadow figures moving around? And people were quick to say, that's a demon.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no, that's a spirit that's lost definition. But if you call it a demon, you know what? It's going to try. It's going to say, give me identity. Tell me who I am. Tell me what I am. And it'll do many demonic-like things only because it is seeking identity. It wants
You're
to be
encouraging
something.
it when you do.
You're encouraging it. You're feeding it. Yeah. Don't feed the spirits. Don't feed the ghosts.
Don't feed the bears.
And then at the end,
man.
it becomes a mist. And then you get this mist. And usually the mist will never turn back into a figure or form. That's the last
so sad.
phase. And it's trying desperately to stay. And it's like, it's time to move on. Ideally, if you move on early enough that you still have your faculties and your looks, you can identify as yourself and you go to the light. That's who you are in the light. But if you lose that, I don't know. I don't have an answer. If you lose the definition of who you are you that person when you make it to the next stage, phase, dimension, place? It does raise a lot of questions.
That is an interesting thought.
Well, and that's the thing, because you hear the word demon thrown around a lot, and it's like, well, I think there are multiple things that we've used, because it's all about the name game. Can you figure out the name of the thing that is bothering you, what it may be? Because I do believe that there are just energies out there, that non-intelligent, energies, and some of them can do damage.
I have had some serious bouts with some elementals.
Right, elementals is a
serious.
Great way to put it. Yeah.
Yes.
And the fact that the indigenous people recognize elementals and recognize the significance of elementals, it's like, it's true. There are these things, and what you really learn, which I find endlessly fascinating, is that if you can figure out a way to harness or honor or deal with these non-intelligent but powerful forces, they can serve you.
Absolutely.
They can
you can create. Sorry, I dropped my pen. You can actually create an elemental that will serve you, that will do what you need it to do, and it won't stop. And that's where people that are very irresponsible, they don't get them back under control.
Yeah, that's called
it's
creation.
Thank you. That's right, Christopher. And what ends up happening there is now you got this situation where you've got an entity that's willing to do the bidding of someone that is dead.
Yeah.
And
well, it's like
it
fire.
Gets in trouble. It gets in trouble. It's
the exact same thing as fire. A fire can burn you. It can kill you. If it gets on you, it'll burn you up. It's dangerous. But you can cook your food with it. You can keep yourself warm. If you open set a fire, it can rage and destroy a force, your entire home. It can destroy the neighborhood. It can destroy everything. Fire is the best way to describe these forces, elemental forces, because you can tap into them. You can use them to your end. But if you don't pay attention, they will burn you up. They will destroy everything in their path. And it's not because they're evil. And that's another thing that I constantly have this conversation. It's like, this spirit did me harm, so I like
you more every moment we're talking.
Well, it's interesting because I'm always like, it's funny because in a lot of Eastern cultures, they will typify like a tiger as evil because it came and it killed a man, and they're like, that tiger was evil. It's like, no, that tiger was being a tiger. That tiger was doing what tigers do. And we've labeled it as evil because we are the only arbiters of evil. We choose what is evil.
Right.
And so when you look at an animal doing what an animal does and you say it's evil, it's like, are you sure? We really should take a look at that, because that probably is applicable to all of our spiritual needs and all of our understanding. We think that if it harms us, it's evil. It's like, well, maybe we were careless. Maybe we didn't pay attention. Maybe we are responsible for the harm. Because if I stand, under a wasp nest and snap at it, and the wasps come out and sting me, are the wasps evil?
They're not.
Yeah,
right. They're protecting their home.
Exactly.
Now, I will tell you that there's a lot of elementals in the areas, in our areas, okay? Because when the Civil War was fought, well, the Revolutionary War for that matter too, but especially, the Civil War, there were a lot of women left home alone. And what was home with the women? There were a lot of slaves that were there, and when things were being, people were being attacked. You know, there's a lot of things going on. What were they going to do? How are they going to fight? So the people only did what they knew. And a lot of African cultures know how they don't call them elementals, but they are. And they're creating these things in order to give a warning so that they have a chance to survive.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
now these things were not reabsorbed or given another job. So now they're getting into trouble.
And I
Well,
bet the homeowners, when their husbands were gone off the war, um, uh, asked their slaves to teach them this stuff, and they did it themselves too. I bet.
Yeah, there's
well,
a lot of
Savannah is
doctors.
full of that story of seeing the natural abilities and being like, can you protect my family with that craft?
Mhm.
And so there is a very tenuous relationship in this town between people who owned slaves and the slaves who were gifted with natural magics, because they were like, we'll make a deal. Your time on earth will not be as difficult if you can serve us spiritually, but it's all under the table. We'll never speak of it. We'll never,
Yeah, and
it'll
that's what
never
I
be
think what
something out in the
happened.
open.
That's what I think happened at the Sorrel Weed home. Now, let's don't forget that it was actually built on the property where there was
Revolutionary War, the trench. Yeah, the Hessians.
trench. The
Right.
Hessians. Now, the Hessians, those
They're
people were
terrifying people.
fierce. They
Yes.
would file their teeth to a point
Right. To
to
be
be
fierce.
frightening. So all of that happened there
Yep.
at that spot. We got two women and they're in peril. We've got a
Well,
man that was in love with a woman that slowly rotted in front of him.
another
And
story that actually is interesting too, that isn't talked about a lot, is that there was a lot of suspicion that Francis Sorrel himself was in fact the product of an affair with a slave,
so he
because
might have been.
he came from Haiti, and there's a belief. And again, these are like the kind of rumors that come around when
And
people
when you
start thinking, but they believe that he was an illegitimate child born of a slave during the
wow,
Haitian Revolution. His family was massacred, and then he came to the States with Molly. Molly was his servant then, and a lot of people were like, I think it was his wife. I think he was married to Molly, and that's why Lucinda died. That's why Matilda died, was because it broke the bonds of that marriage. And I was like, that's such an interesting story. Again, that's all hearsay and
I thought he
and
was.
guessing.
I thought he had some affiliation with magic. I really did.
Oh yes, I have no doubt about it. As a matter of fact, my experience in the building was because they had kind of suggested that Molly was a practitioner of voodoo, and they wanted to put a voodoo representation in the house, and
Oh,
it turned out to be kind of a bad idea. And so that notion was very strong at the time. It was like, oh, I think she was a practitioner. She probably had, a small altar somewhere in the house, and she was practicing. And the fact that Francis Sorrel grew up in Haiti, exposed to it all, there's this belief that he must have had,
of
at the very
course.
least, exposure to it, if not full practicing,
See,
for that he practiced it.
right. When you see things, then that's just natural. It's like cooking or anything else.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so we've got 5 minutes left in the
Oh,
show. I'm
sure.
going to throw your poster back up. This is Chris Soucy, and he is with the most haunted city on earth, a podcast about keeping Savannah's dead alive. I love it. I say let's go to the
I
Sorrel
would
Weed
love to
home.
keep in touch with you.
Yes,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
should.
Please do. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
really made me think, and it's like I've been thinking, like a week ago, I was helping somebody. When you make creations of elementals, you're supposed to merge them back into yourself.
Absolutely.
That's right.
That's absolutely true.
Hey, Chris, you knew that. Oh my God! See, I could have spoken about things like this, but I didn't know.
It's because I'm familiar with hoodoo and other things that uh, you gotta remember as I have a lot of French in me, it's probably
Oh,
part of
sure.
my repertoire of studies.
Mhm.
And
Christopher. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to ask you to read the indigenous prayer at the end. Do you mind?
I don't mind.
Okay, so I'm going to throw this up. We've only got 4 minutes left. All Access Network. So me and my husband, Christopher and Blaine, and my mom and Gwen, and that is All Access Network. I'm going to put this up, and then you're going to end the show for us tonight, Christopher. And thank you, Chris, for being on the show.
My pleasure.
A native blessing. May Mother Earth guide your feet. May Father Sky keep his arms around you. May Grandfather Sun warm your cold days. May Grandmother Moon keep the glow in your heart. May the star nations light the way to the next destination, and the Great Spirit always keep you shielded from the pain. Blessings to you all.
Thank you.